Hello, NIST educators and conference attendees. My name is Dr. Heldman, and what I'd like to walk you through today is how to create a virtualized ethical hacking lab using Oracle Virtual Hypervisor software and some other tools that we'll use. I have found this to be very, very helpful when I'm teaching my students cybersecurity. I teach cybersecurity, computer science, and machine learning at a CTE high school, career and technical education high school located in Lakewood, Colorado. And right away I start teaching this ethical hacking virtualized lab stuff right away. And it does a lot for you. First of all, it shows the students how virtualization works, at least at the local level. It gets them ready for cloud level experiences where they're dealing with virtualization in a much larger sort of environment. It also allows you to teach them Linux, and then you can also teach virtual ethical hacking like Nmap, Wireshark, other tools like that. And so in this movie, what we're going to do, this is an update to a movie that I did about a year ago. We're going to go in and show you how to get this going and how to start it up and how to walk your students through preparing it as well. This may take two movies as there are a couple of other details that we'll have to mop up. But in this first movie, at least what we will do is we will get Oracle VirtualBox installed. We will get some open source routing software called pfSense installed. And then we will install Kali Linux, and we'll go in and make sure that we can hit the pfSense router. So let's get started. I think you'll enjoy this, and this is really a good way for you to get your students engaged in things like firewalls, in Kali Linux and in other versions of Linux, in virtualization, and things like that. So it's just a one-stop shopping environment that helps you teach a whole bunch of things. So let's get started. I hope you have fun. Okay, first things first, I want to show you a couple of websites where you're going to get some software. So the first thing I want to show you is VirtualBox. This is made by Oracle. It's called Oracle VirtualBox. And you can go out to virtualbox.org. You can see the URL right here. And you'll see that you can hit the VirtualBox site. It's currently version 7. I like version 7 a great deal. So you'll download that and you'll install that. And it's a pretty straightforward installation. Getting used to using VirtualBox is a little bit different story. It'll take you a while to get accustomed to the app, but installing it is not a big deal, and you should paste it to your taskbar once you're all said and done. Additionally, I want to point you out to pfSense. So pfSense is at pfSense.org, and this is a little bit different download. So the way that this works is you go out to download, and then you'll see here that it's currently version 2.7 as of this recording. And what you need to do is select the architecture that you want to download. There's really only two choices. The first choice is AMD, which is what you want. Notice here that it's 64-bit. Or you can go with what's called Netgate ADI. Now, the company that makes pfSense is called Netgate. This is very, very good software. I like it a great deal. And you can buy devices that have pfSense loaded on it for your house or even for business. We're not going to do that. We're going to load AMD 64 here. Notice that this is the community edition. So I select AMD 64, and then I have to select a mirror where I'm going to get the software from. So in this case, I'm going to, I lied. I have to select whether I'm going to use a USB memstick installer or a DVD. We're going to use the DVD ISO. ISO is something that's been around a long time. It's an installation software methodology, and we'll have to get used to using ISOs within VirtualBox for certain software. Other softwares, not so much. It's not a big problem. And then Austin, Texas is the default mirror. That's fine by us, so we download that. Now what I do is I put that in a software folder. I created a software folder here called pfSense, and I'm going to download it right here. I'd like for you to note that it is version 2.7 and that it is what is called a GZ file. This stands for GNU zip. GNU is the Linux licensing system, and so one of the things that they've incorporated into GNU is a zip and an unzip, so we're going to have to unzip this once we've got it downloaded. So I'll save that. Now, I've already got VirtualBox installed, but you can install it yourself. It's really not that difficult. The other thing we want to get is I want to show you Metasploitable. So you're going to look for Metasploitable version 2. And where this is going to take you is to a company called Rapid7. These guys manufacture some software called Metasploit. I love Metasploit a great deal. It's really cool to teach. It's very, very powerful. Takes you a while to learn it, but it's something that you need to definitely learn. Now down here where it says downloading and setting up Metasploitable 2, you have two choices, either the Rapid7 site or the SourceForge site. I would actually go with the SourceForge site, as Rapid7 is going to require you to key in a little bit of information about yourself. You really don't need it. What I would do is navigate out to SourceForge. I would download it here, save it off into a software folder. I would put this inside Linux. I would create a Linux folder and then a subfolder called Metasploitable. I've already got that, so I'll show that to you in just a minute. Okay, that's what I've got here for our downloads. Now let's take a look at the Windows File Explorer and see what we have to do there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that tool up. And here I am I've created a D drive software folder, and I've got a pfSense folder sitting out here. Now you can see that it is a GZ file. What I have to do is unzip this thing. I like 7-zip a great deal, so if you just Google the number 7 plus the word zip, you'll be able to download that and install it. So I'm just going to right-click this. I'm running Windows 11, so the place where 7-zip is located has changed from Windows 10 to Windows 11. So you go down here to show more options. 7-zip, extract here. Now 7-zip has the ability to extract a GZ file, which is way cool. I like that a lot. And then we have the ISO sitting out here. We're going to install that ISO. That's the very first thing that we're going to do. But I want to show you also Metasploitable. So here's Metasploitable right here. Where did I do with that? Oh, I created a folder called Linux. And here's Metasploitable. And you can see that this is a zip file. I have downloaded this previously. When you unzip it, you can use 7-zip or you can use the Windows unzip tool, either way, to extract this thing. And it creates this folder here called Metasploitable Linux. Let me show that to you. So I right-click, show more options, 7-zip, extract here. And you can see that it's extracting right here. And then what it will do is it'll create that folder, and the thing that we're looking for inside that folder is a blue box called a VMDK. It stands for Virtual Machine Disk, and there it is right there. And so we can use that to install Metasploitable. Now here's the thing. There's going to be a difference between the way that we install pfSense in Oracle VirtualBox, Metasploitable in Oracle VirtualBox, and Kali Linux in Oracle VirtualBox. Let me show Kali to you. So you go out to kali.org. Love these guys. This is manufactured by Offensive Security. These guys have a very, very popular certification called the Offensive Security Certified Pen Tester. That is definitely a desirable cert. I don't have it. I tried for it a few years ago, got into the weeds with it and backed out, but it is something that I think is very desirable to have. And someday, who knows, maybe I'll go back and try for it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and click download. Now in the Kali site, you need to know that there's a couple of different choices. So you have installers, like you can install this directly on a server or on a laptop, or you can install it on an ARM processor, which is very cool, a mobile, on the cloud. But in our case, we're going to pick virtual machines. Now there are 4 virtual machines that we should be concerned about. The one we're going to use here is Oracle VirtualBox. You can also download Kali for VMware, which is a very popular hypervisor that is definitely the 800-pound gorilla in IT. VMware is running everywhere. And then Hyper-V, which is a Microsoft product, and Kimu, which is an open source hypervisor. we're going to use VirtualBox, and I'm going to select this download right here. You can see that I've got a little arrow right here where I'm going to download VirtualBox, and I'm going to put it in a VirtualBox folder. So I go Software, Linux, VirtualBox folder. I said I'm at Kali here, and I'm going to save this. Now notice that this is a 7-zip file as well. So I save it. Okay, so we've got some downloads cooking, and now what we're going to do is move over to Oracle VirtualBox, and we're going to get pfSense started first. So I'll minimize this, and here I am at my Oracle VirtualBox window. Now you can have a light or a dark setting on this. I think it's under Preferences where you find that. I like the dark. It actually works out pretty good for me. It's easier on the eyes. Now there's several components to this thing that you need to be familiar with. Under the File menu, you have the ability to do certain things. And there is this idea of importing an appliance, and I really like appliances. We may not use that today. We'll have to see how we do. We don't necessarily even need to use it. Kali, for example, comes as a pre-built appliance. We just double-click the icon, and it will automatically populate itself into Oracle VirtualBox. It's very, very cool. But in our case with pfSense, we can't import an appliance because it's not pre-configured. It's an ISO file. We have to install it. So it's a 3-part process. The first part is to create a new virtual machine. We call that a VM. Then what we have to do is adjust the settings for the VM, and then we start it and go through the installation process. So pfSense takes a minute. So let's get going here. We click New, and I'm going to type in the word pfSense. Please note the PF is lowercase, and the uppercase is the S in sense. I'm going to point it out to this drive here. I don't really want it here. I'm going to point it to my D drive, which is where all of my other stuff is at. I don't keep very much on my D drive here. So I've got D:, I picked the wrong one, D:, VirtualBox VMs, and I'm going to put this in pfSense and select folder. The ISO image that I'm going to grab, I'm going to click this drop down and go to Other, and I'm going to go to Software, and I think I have a pfSense folder right here, and I'm going to grab this ISO guy right here. We've already unzipped it, so we're grabbing the ISO now, and it says that it's an ISO. Now you need to pay attention. This is BSD Linux. BSD stands for Berkeley Systems Division, or Berkeley whatever. They're out of business now, but they had a very popular version of Unix, and it's become open source, and so pfSense uses Unix, BSD Unix, and you can play around with it. You can download it and play around with it if you want. And then we need to make sure it's not 32-bit. We've got to go with FreeBSD 64-bit. So that's what we set there. Then we click Next. Now it says that it needs, it defaults to 1 gig of RAM. I think that's okay in the case of pfSense. Other systems that we use, we might have to jack that up a little bit. For example, Kali Linux is going to need 4 gig of RAM, not 1 gig. But I'm going to leave pfSense at 1. And if we get into an environment where we get what's called a kernel panic, we can come back and adjust this to above 1 gig to 2 gig. I'm going to give it 1 CPU. I'm going to give it 2 CPUs. And in fact, I've changed my mind because I have run into pfSense kernel panics before. I'm going to go ahead and update this guy to 1024. So I'll just drag the slider here to 2048, which is 2 gig. We go from 1024 to 2448. You knew that a byte is 1024, right? So 1024 to 2048, that's a gigabyte of RAM. We click Next. 16 gig is okay. I'm going to jack this up to 25 gig just to have a little bit of a safety zone. What you're doing here is you're telling it how much hard drive space you want it to have when it installs. And then you click Next. This is a summary sheet. It's telling you what you're going to do. And we click Finish. So now we have set up the machine. We've created a new machine, but we have not set the options for it. So the next thing we do, by the way, I want to show you on the right-hand side here, you have a little information thing right here, and you can look at the information and make sure that everything is set okay. The next thing we do is we go into settings right here. Settings has two different windows. So we've got a window going downhill. These are all panes, tabs. For each tab we have, like general, we have tabs going horizontally. So in the general settings, we've got basic, advanced, description, disk encryption. And so it works like that. Now under general advanced, what I like to do is I like to enable bidirectional clipboard and bidirectional drag and drop. The reason I do that is because if you have, say, a URL or you have a path to a file that you're looking at in Windows, you can copy that, you can paste it into your environment. We will likely not use it that much here in pfSense, but it's just become a general habit with me. Under System, this is the dumbest thing in the world. Oracle continues to choose to have the floppy drive, which hasn't been in existence since, 2000, as the number one in the boot order. I'm going to turn that off. I don't want that. What I want is the hard disk drive in the first boot order and the optical drive in the second. So this is what you want your boot order to look like. I actually move floppy down, even though it's not going to try and boot. This would be the way that I would have it look. You remember that we have two processors selected. NX oftentimes is enabled, and enabled nested VT is enabled. As a general rule of thumb, if it's not checked, I'm going to trust the system. I should stop here and say that in order for you to be able to run Oracle VirtualBox or VMware or whatever, you'll have to go into the BIOS of your computer. So you'll reboot it, you hit whatever gets you into the BIOS, if it's Escape or F12 or F2 or whatever, and you'll have to enable virtualization in there. Now that's going to be a separate deal. You'll have to Google that or whatever, but virtualization does have to be enabled on the motherboard in order for you to be able to use Oracle VirtualBox or any other hypervisor. And I generally just trust if VirtualBox puts this in here, I trust it. If not, I don't mess with it. Now under display, we don't really have anything, although I will point out to you that under remote display, you can use the Microsoft port 3389, which is remote desktop protocol. So you could send the display to a different computer on port 3389, which is fine. I don't ever use it. And if you were recording, YouTube movies like this one, you could enable the recording so that you could record right off of the VirtualBox screen. Under storage, I want to point out to you a couple of things here. First of all, this little guy is designed to be a picture of a mechanical hard drive. So what Oracle has done, this is clever, is they draw little pictures of what they're trying to emulate so that you understand that, hey, this is a virtualized hard drive, this is a virtualized CD-ROM. So we have two of those. We've got the CD-ROM picture here, DVD, whatever, and then we've got the mechanical hard drive picture here. And it's telling us that it's going to boot to the VDI. VDI stands for Virtual Disk Image. So this is what VirtualBox created for us. And then it's going to install pfSense 2.7.0 from that ISO file. Under audio, we really don't need audio inside pfSense, so I'm going to disable it. It doesn't hurt anything to leave it enabled. That's not a big deal. Under network, this is where you really have to pay attention when you're using pfSense. I have other movies where I've walked people through how to enable more than one port. You can have a port adapter. You can have up to 8 adapters enabled in VirtualBox, 4 of which are visible here, the other 4 of which have to be enabled through code. But in our case, because we're going to be using just Kali and VirtualBox initially, pfSense initially, and Kali, we only need 2 adapters. So I'll talk to you about what that means here. So pfSense has 2 adapters. It's going to have one that points to the outside, and what it's going to do is it's going to get an IP address from your school or your home, wherever you're playing around with this, and that's going to be the outside IP address, and that's fine. And it's going to use what is called NAT. NAT stands for Network Address Translation. And what this means is that when we get ready to go out to the internet, we're going to go to your computer's network adapter and we're going to say, please, sir, will you go get this for me from the internet? And it's going to translate our address to a proper address that can be on the internet and go out and get that information and bring it back to us. That's what NAT is. There's another choice here, and I don't use it very often anymore, but it used to be if you ran into problems with pfSense, you could try this. It's called bridged adapter. In this case, what you're doing is you're sharing the adapter with your computer. Generally speaking, we don't need to be too worried about that anymore. It seems like things have improved really well with VirtualBox software, so I'm going to stick with NAT. But if I did get into some sort of weird problem where I couldn't connect, what I would do is try changing this to bridge to see if that helped. Then on adapter 2, this is the inside adapter. So a router has at least one outside and one inside, or if you have a router on the internet, at least one going this way and one going this way. And in this case, what we have is an outside adapter that is talking to the internet, and then an inside adapter that is talking to our private network. We're going to enable adapter 2, and in this case, we're going to set it to something special. We're going to set it to what is called internal network. Internal network. Now this picks up a default name, intnet, I-N-T-N-E-T, intnet, and that's fine. You could change that name if you wanted to. I don't think you should. Intnet works just fine, so we'll leave it at that. So again, adapter 1 is pointed to NAT, and it is enabled. Adapter 2 is pointed to internal network, and it is enabled. And if we wanted to do other networks, we could enable adapter 3 and adapter 4, but we're not going to in this particular lab. Serial ports, we really don't have anything to do with that. And USB, by default, is set for USB 2. And if I'm being honest with you, it's very, very rare that you'll use a USB in a virtualized environment like this. So 2.0 is fine. And so we click OK. OK, now we've done 2 out of the 3 steps. So we created the machine. Then we went in and configured the settings for the machine. Now we have to install the software. So I'm going to click Start here, and we're going to start this software. Now if you look over here on the right-hand side, Oracle Box version 7 and above has started to create these windows. And there's one that I want you to see here. It's going to shoot up from here. And what it's going to do is tell you that it is capturing your mouse and capturing your keyboard inside the virtual machine. Now, in some cases, it's fine. Kali, we don't really care because as soon as we go into the virtual machine, we go back out. It really doesn't matter. But with something like a Metasploitable, it is going to capture our mouse and our keyboard. And to get back out of it, we have to use this button right here, the right control key. So on your keyboard, if you look at the control keys, you have 2 of them. The one on the right is going to get you out of capture mode in the event that it really was captured. Some OSs capture it, some OSs do not. Now we're looking at the pfSense installer, so I click in here, and this is not a mouse-ready installation. This is all using the enter keys and other special keys on your keyboard. It's highlighted in blue. I'm going to go ahead and accept. Now it says it's going to install pfSense. That's fine by me. I'm going to hit enter to accept. I'm going to let it create a shell here. That's fine by me. I'm going to hit OK. Hit enter to accept. OK. I'm going to install. I'm going to proceed with the installation. So I hit enter to select OK. It asks me what kind of RAID I want to do. In this case, we're going to stripe with no parity. Fine. That's perfectly fine by me. But if I were doing this in a I wanted a lot of fault tolerance and redundancy, I might use RAID 5 or RAID 0, but in this case I'm not going to. So I hit enter to select OK. Now this is a place where you have to use your keyboard. You select that particular device. Linux gives everything a device name, and so it's saying I'm going to make this device. Is this where you want to install pfSense? Yes, it is. So we select it with spacebar and then hit OK. Last chance. Now, if we selected no here, it would start us all back around again. So we just go right back around and have to start over. So you hit your left arrow key and hit enter to select. It goes ahead and it installs pfSense. It doesn't take it very long. It's a pretty quick installation. This thing is surprisingly crisp and robust considering everything it's capable of. And then we'll hit enter to reboot the system. Now on reboot, what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of light gray and dark gray. You can see it there. I'm going to right click to get out of here. And you're going to see light gray and dark gray. And so you shouldn't be alarmed at this at all. All it's doing is telling you that certain things are happening. These are notices that BSD is giving you, telling you it's doing things. The only time you really need to pay attention to this would be, well, A, if you wanted to know more about what's happening under the covers with pfSense, but B, if you had something that said something like kernel panic, then you would need to be concerned about that. And here's our light gray. So what it's doing is actually configuring the interfaces and stuff for the pfSense router at this point. This is all really normal, nothing really going on here. When you get to the point where it says DNS resolver, you're getting very close to being at the end of this. I'm going to tell you that pfSense is always going to be a relatively long boot. This is not a short boot by any stretch of the imagination. So you just need to be patient as it goes through its efforts and it comes up and running. And then once it's done, it shows you this. Now I want to point this out to you. This is going to be something that you'll want to point out to students as well. It creates two adapters initially. Remember that we can have other adapters, but in this case we only have the two. One is called WAN. WAN stands for Wide Area Network. What this means is that this is the adapter that's pointed out to the internet. In our case, what it did was it got a DHCP address from I'm at home, so it got it from my home router. This is the address that it picked up. Now you should know that in Linux, everything's a file and everything gets a name, and they're pretty odd names. So what pfSense did was it gave this adapter the name of EM0, Echo Mike 0. You'll see other adapter names as you go along, and as you start playing around with Kali and so forth, you'll see different adapter names. But in this case, EM0 is the name of my WAN adapter. And then I have a LAN adapter. LAN stands for Local Area Network. And it picked up this address. This is very common. And this is a Class C reserved address. And every pfSense installation uses this. I would not change this. I would just leave it this way. And it gets a name of EM1. Now you can use the system from this menu. For example, item number 7 here, I'm going to click in here and I'm going to type in the number 7 to ping a host. And I want to ping www.microsoft.com just to see if it's working. And it's going to go out and try to ping this host. And sure enough, I get a reply. That means that everything's working and everything's cool. But we are not going to use the pfSense menus at all. The only thing we want to ascertain is to make sure that, I'm going to hit my right control to get out of here, to make sure that our WAN link is showing something in here. That's important. To show that our LAN link is showing something. If you show LAN link with 192.168.1.1, but your WAN link doesn't have anything in it, you need to go back and look at what's happening. You need to maybe change it to bridged adapter, or maybe you have a weird adapter setting on adapter number 1. You'll have to go back and troubleshoot that. Okay, now that's our pfSense installation. Now let's install Kali. So Kali's quite a bit easier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this guy here. I'm going to go out to my Windows File Explorer. I'm going to go to my D drive. I'm going to go to Software, Linux. I've got Kali Linux right here, and this is a 7-zip file. So what I have to do is I have to unzip it. Notice that this is version 23.3. They recently went through a major update to this software. I'm going to right-click this, Show More Options, 7-zip, Extract Here. And then it's going to take it a minute to extract it. This is what it looks like. Have no idea why it wants to pop it up in a separate window, but it does. So it doesn't take too long to extract it. And the main thing that I want you to know about here is that once it's done extracting this file, what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and open it up. It's going to create what we would call in the old days an appliance. This is a clickable VMDK. You just double click that bad boy and it'll load itself right into VirtualBox, and you're away to the races. It's very, very cool. Offensive Security has done some seriously good work here. So we're just waiting on this to finish extracting. And we're done. So now we have this folder here. Notice here that we have two things here. So we have this blue guy here, which is a VirtualBox. This is a definition file. And then we have the VDI, the virtual disk image file. This is the guy that we double click and it's going to load up into VirtualBox for us. So I double click this guy and it's going to show up in or VirtualBox. Maybe that's not the one I clicked. Maybe I need to double click the blue box here. There we go. That's what I wanted. So you double click the upper blue box here and it'll automatically install it, and it reads all of the information. It's very, very cool. It's basically set to go. So I can minimize this guy here. Now, it's already installed the machine and the configurations are basically there. So if you look down through here, you can see a description and all the other stuff. This was all created by Offensive Security, so we didn't have to do this. However, since we're running pfSense, one of the things that we have to do is we have to go to settings. I want to point out to you that a major distribution of Linux is called Debian Linux, and it's like if you think about Windows, we had Windows 95 and Windows XP and Windows 10 and Windows 11 and Vista and so forth, and there were these various iterations of Windows. It's kind of like that, only not really. What it is, hey, we took the Linux kernel and we did something with it that makes it work for us and do special things for us, and we're going to call it Kali Linux. And then somebody else took this thing, they took Debian Linux and worked with it and made it something they wanted it to be, and they called it Mint or Ubuntu or whatever. So Debian is the kernel that is running this Kali Linux, but you need to be aware that there are several other iterations of Debian, like we just talked about, Ubuntu and Mint, and even Debian Linux. You can even install Debian Linux. So Debian is a word that you want to get used to. Now, we're going to go into settings here. And what I'm going to do, I don't have to change much here. It's already been done for me. So if I go to display, you can see that they gave it a certain display. General, we have all this stuff. They've already enabled bidirectional, which is way cool. System, they've moved everything to the top like that. The only thing we really have to be worried about is network. And by default, it is enabled for NAT, but because we're behind a pfSense firewall, we want to enable this for internal network, intnet. That's the only change we have to make. Click OK and click Start. Now this thing is going to come right up and it's going to start running, and you're going to be very, very happy. It'll actually even auto resize to fill your screen here. I love this Kali distro. It's very cool. This is what Kali looks like when it's installing. It's a super quick boot. There's 100 or so tools in here that you have to learn how to use to be really efficient at using Kali Linux. This is what Kali looks like. Got the cool Kali Dragon here. And it looks a little bit like pfSense, where you're getting the light gray and then the white fonts and stuff. And this is what Kali looks like. I'll bring it up a little ways here. The logon, the username is Kali, and the password is Kali, all lowercase. And Kali is, I don't know, a goddess of death or something. I don't know why they named it that. And this is the ugliest background I've ever seen. Fortunately, it goes away. So you click Login. It'll log you into Kali. I'll show you what it looks like here in a minute. And this is close to what it's going to look like. And I'm going to maximize it to fit my screen here. Welcome to Kali Linux. Okay, and it took away that ugly screen. Now, I want to get you used to a couple of things here. First of all, the Dragon menu here shows you all of the stuff that you can do inside Kali. So if you click the Dragon menu, you'll be able to find all of the different tools. They've been grouped by their categories, like information gathering, vulnerability analysis, web application, and so forth. Then, over here to the right of this menu, You see here that you can have multiple machines. Oh, this is a minimize. Minimizes everything. This sends you to your home folder. This opens up your home folder. This is a text editor. This is Firefox. It's your browser. We'll use that frequently. And then this is the thing that we're going to use a lot, the terminal emulator. So I will click this thing, and it's going to bring up what's called a Linux terminal. It's also called the command line interface. You might hear it called the CLI, command line interface, terminal. Windows has the very same thing. It has two. It has the Windows command prompt or PowerShell. I'm going to go to preferences here, and I don't like this font size. So I'm going to change this to like a 24. I'm going to put in a 24 font size. It's easier to see, especially for students. And when it comes to terminal, I'm not real fond of Kali Dark. I'm going to select Kali Light and click Apply and click OK. Okay, this is Kali. This is the terminal. Now, I want to teach you a quick command, and then we're going to go in and take a quick look at the pfSense dashboard so you can see what that looks like from inside Kali. First of all, I want you to know that there is a user called root. You are not root. Your username is Kali. Your machine name is Kali. So this is basically saying Kali at Kali. When you want to go to root status, you want to be root. You want to run something as root. You have to type in a command called sudo. It stands for super user do. And then we're going to tell it that we want to do an apt update. Now, apt is just an update program that comes with Debian Linux. It won't take you long to get used to using apt. Sudo apt update just goes out and updates the current files in case there's something that needs updating since when we pulled this down and installed it. So I hit enter. You need to type in the Kali password, and it'll go through and it'll do an update. And what this is doing is this is checking to make sure that we are definitely connected to what is called Kali rolling, and we can get out onto the web. So this is, for me, more of just a sense maker to make sure that we are definitely able to get out onto the web and update Kali. Okay, so it's all done. Everything's cool. I'm going to teach you your first Linux command is clear. Clear clears the work screen in Kali in any Linux. That's the command, and it's not the command in Windows. And now we're good to go there. So I'm going to leave that alone for another video. The next thing that we want to do is we want to bring up Firefox here. And so you click the Firefox icon. I'm happy with it being Firefox. I'm not a big fan of Firefox. It's not my preferred browser, but it'll work in a pinch, and this is what it looks like. And it comes with some pre-configured pages for you to look at in case you're interested in learning more about Kali. And in this case, what we want to do, in fact, I should show you this. I'm going to minimize this screen. You've got minimize, maximize, and kill right here. If you minimize it, what it's going to do is put it over on the far right-hand side with a blue line under here to show you that you have an active window here, and here's your active Firefox. What I'm going to do is run a new command. I want to teach you another command that is very cool, and we'll wind up using this once we're using Metasploitable, but I want to show it to you early. So it has to be run as sudo, so you type in sudo net discover. This is the coolest command on the planet because what it does is it goes out and finds out all of the other computers that are in your environment here. And it brings back the IP address of 192.168.1.1, which happens to be the inside interface on your pfSense box. It doesn't show you your address. Let me show you how you get that. So I do a Control-C to get out of NetDiscover. We'll come back to NetDiscover because it's very cool. And I'm going to type in IP. In fact, I'll clear the screen. I'm going to type in two commands. I want to show you the old command for looking at your IP configuration information, and I want to show you the new command. So the old command is ifconfig, and I hit enter, and I have to scroll up, And I told you that we name everything, right? So your adapter is called ETH0, Ethernet 0. This is all emulated. It's all fake. And it's telling you that Kali has an IP address of 192.168.1.100. And we got that address from pfSense. pfSense is a DHCP server. It's giving out IP addressing information, and it gave us out the very first available number that it has in the pool, which is 1.100. So now we know two IP addresses. We know that pfSense is at 192.168.1.1, and we know that our Kali box is at 192.168.1.100. Now an alternative, I'm going to clear the screen, an alternative to ifconfig, which has been deprecated. It's really not in use anymore, although they still package it with certain distros of Linux. Another command is IP space ADD RESS, IP address. However, most people that work in IT don't like to type all that much, so you could type in IP ADDR. However, that's still maybe a little bit too much typing. So why don't we just do IP space A? This is the new way to get your IP information off of Kali. This will work for any Debian installation that's newer. So IPA will work for you, and you hit enter. Now it brings a couple of things to the table. It color codes things like your Ethernet adapter name. It color codes your IP address. Furthermore, when we ran ifconfig, ETH0 is way up on top. Now the loopback adapter is on top and ETH0 is second. So it shows up last in the list, which is great because we don't have to be scrolling around looking for other information. And again, it tells you that it's at 192.168.1.100. Very good. So that's cool. Now what we're going to do is minimize this guy, and we're going to go out to our browser here. I'm going to connect to my pfSense router. So the easy way to do that is to type in 192.168.1.1 and hit enter. Now Firefox is going to tell you, hey, this is risky. That's okay. We don't want to go back. What we want to do is we want to go to advanced, scroll down, and accept the risk and continue. It's a certificate issue. That's all we need to say about this for now. Just go forward and go into it and accept the risk. There's no risk here. And welcome to pfSense. Okay, the login by default to pfSense is admin, and the password is pfSense. All lowercase, all lowercase. Hit enter. I'm not going to save this to the browser. I never do that. Don't save that to your browser password chain. That's a bad idea. It's a way to get hacked. And you get a wizard. So we're going to go through the wizard. So we click next. And then it's telling us that Netgate support is available 24/7. Click next. It gives us the name of our router. It's pfSense. That's fine by me. You have to get in the habit of scrolling down to get to your next button or your finish button or whatever. Now here, this NTP stands for Network Time Protocol. And what it's doing is it's telling you it's going to go out to pfSense and it's going to update its time using pfSense's NTP servers. That's fine, but I'm in Mountain Zone, so I'm going to change this to US Mountain right here. Where'd it go? Right there. And you'll change it to whatever zone you're in. Click next. It's going to using DHCP. That's great for us. We love that. We're just going to keep all this. Click next. This is the default address that it's going to use for its side, the private side of the network. It's going to use 192.168.1.1. We're not going to change that. Click next. And this is where you can type in an admin password. Now, I always teach my students to use something simple like welcome1, capital W, number 1. I would not do that if I was hacking, for example. I'd probably use a stronger password. But if you're in a lab with students, the reason I do that is because if I have to get into the lab for whatever reason and I have to log in to do some change or something, A lot of times a student will use some weird password they can't remember, and then none of us can get in. We got to go through the whole installation process again. I just settle on welcome one, capital WELCOME number 1, and live with it. I don't save that, and then you reload your router. What it's going to do is just exactly what it says. It's going to reload the router. Beautiful. Now you could check for updates if you wanted to. You can check for updates. But what I'm going to do, well, I'll go ahead and click finish here. I don't want to do a user survey, although it will prompt you for a user survey when you're done. There we go, and there's the survey. Move my little recording screen out of the way. I click accept and close. And this is what the pfSense interface looks like. So there's some widgets here that are useful and some that aren't. Like this NetGate services and support widget, I don't really care about, so I'm going to kill this widget here. This widget, I'm going to minimize. There's good information here, but it's a little long, but I want to keep it, so I'll just minimize it. And then now this is what my widgets look like. It's telling me how much disk space I'm using and what my connections are here. These are my adapters, my WAN adapter, my LAN adapter. Very good. Now, how do you go back and look for updates? Well, you go to System, you go to Update, and you can look for any updates that are out there. You can see the green scroll wheel here. It's looking for any updates. We're at 2.7. We're up to date. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, we have run through installing pfSense with an ISO, and you need to remember that we have a couple of different ways we can get into VirtualBox. We can set up a machine in VirtualBox. ISO is the hardest way. So like when you're getting ready to install, say, Ubuntu Linux, you're going to download an ISO. You're going to have to install it from ISO and go through all of the menus in the regular installation. Kali, not so much. Kali came with an automatically created window for us that we could just launch with a click of a button. Boom, it's all set up. All we had to do was change the network setting to IntNet. We're golden. With pfSense, we had a little bit more work to do because we definitely had that ISO. We had to go through that full-on installation process. Finally, we got into Firefox. We went out to our Kali our pfSense address. We logged onto it and we configured the firewall. Now, please keep in mind that while you're doing this, you have two windows open. Let me see if I can get my taskbar to come up. I've got it hidden right now. I can't. But if you point to your taskbar, you'll see that you have two windows that are open. Kali's currently open, and pfSense is open. So when I'm in class and I'm telling students, hey, we're going to work on Kali today, I get them trained to the point where they know automatically that they're going to bring up pfSense first and then Kali. Now, why pfSense? Well, your students are going to wind up taking a router class. And my guess is you probably can't afford to buy 25 or 50 Palo Alto routers, firewalls to show to students, or Cisco routers. That's awesome, and I think that's great. But initially, just getting students in and getting them accustomed to how firewalls work and intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems and DHCP and other stuff like that, very, very useful to use pfSense because it just works. It's a very good product. I love it a lot. We're going to do a lot more with it. I want to show you a little more in the next video, but I think we've gone long enough for this video. So thank you for hanging with me. You have my email address. Please don't hesitate to email me if you have questions about what we did here. And I look forward to talking to you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.